So today we are talking to Ramtin Fatui. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Kevin.
Good, good. So before you kind of give us an idea of the work that you do,
Hmm.
can you just perhaps give us a bit of your kind of personal background and your career background, how you ended up doing what it is that you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to showcase myself as a coach. Um, to give you a quick background of how I started, so I predominantly worked in sales most of my working career. The first job I had out of uni was a business analyst, which turned into a bit of a business development role. It turned out to be pretty much B2B sales. So worked in sales for about 2-3 years, and then moved into my own startup world, if you will. So I opened up a e-commerce store online,
This
and
is all in this is all in London, is it?
this is all in London. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so that was a thoroughly enjoyable experience, to say the least. But I always
What were
saw
you
myself.
selling?
So we were selling. So it was a food. It was a kind of like a online gourmet food startup. So my vision was I wanted to essentially open up your one-stop shop, go-to store of international foods. So you know how you have your sort of your unique bespoke ethnic stores scattered all around London. I wanted to sort of create an online base for that. So if whatever ethnic background you may be, you hear of this. Our store was called Lemon Salt. Um, and yeah, you go, you access it. You've got a plethora of different options and foods and variety, and very nostalgic feel to it as well. So it's like, oh, I miss these sweets from back home. Let's say you're Polish or whatever, and there was like these meats that you really wanted, so you could have access to that. So that was the sort of vision for it, and we did pretty well. We got to sort of, well, we started off with sort of the Middle Eastern region, because that's where I'm from. My background is Iranian. Both my parents are Iranian, immigrants here to the UK, but I was born and raised, fortunately, in the UK. And so we started off with Middle East, and then we kind of like digressed into other areas like Europe and Eastern Europe. And then slowly the vision of the company changed. We turned into a little bit more sort of focused on anything and everything dinnerware and tableware. So it kind of changed the vision of
Okay.
the actual brand, which wasn't really in line with what I wanted. I was a co-founder of this company, so the CEO who was above me really called the shots. So I don't blame him. It was a very strategic business decision. Our basket sizes grew enormously. So from a strategic standpoint, business standpoint, it was great. Just wasn't in line with what I wanted. However, what I loved about in my role and what I was doing is a lot of my role, I facilitated a lot of conversations outside of the business. So that included negotiating exclusivity deals with very bespoke brands, selling our products to brick and mortar stores and other businesses. So it was a really sort of like people-oriented, people-facing role, and that's what I really enjoyed. And given my background in sales, it kind of like interlinked as well quite nicely. But more importantly, Kevin, what during my tenure, I loved understanding what drove the employees and my colleagues that I was working with. What is it that sort of led them to do what they wanted to do? And I found myself just having these conversations with them during work hours, and helping them with their own sort of personal issues and their own personal problems, and getting them on the right mindset and asking very curious questions, very open questions. um, so having left the startup world, I had
And what was
some
the what was
time.
the sorry, what was the kind of response you got from the people when you were doing that? That's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really positive. Like, so obviously our productivity. It sounds quite nuanced to say it, but like the productivity grew in the business. So I mean, like when there were weeks and there were months where we didn't have much work to do, we had to create work for ourselves. So that sort of inner motivation needed to be sort of ignited. And so like the responses that I would get would be, you know, it was very positive. Like I would sort of see them spring to action, and suddenly I would just see like an uprise in productivity, and suddenly our CEO was, you know, sort of questioning like, what's going on? This person was down a week ago, but now he's like feeling a lot better. Like, what did you do? What did you say? Did you have a conversation with him? And I, you know, try not to bait them out too much, but I try to keep this sort of level. I was like, you know, they're dealing with stuff, but we work through it together. And so yeah, that was, I mean, it was a positive response from my CEO as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
so,
it was,
so that's kind of like embryonic coaching conversations, effectively.
kind of, yeah, but with the notion of obviously not knowing what coaching was back then, because I hadn't have had like the training that I had with Animas. But I had a very sort of natural coaching approach, and I would say how my coaching has changed is, whereas before I would give a lot more advice, now I would sort of sit down and listen and be more curious to what my clients and people around me are presenting to me and want to come into the space with. So yeah, so after the startup world, I had some time, I had some space to reflect. So how I really got into the coaching is I had coaching myself when was it, about 2017? How was that, 7 years ago, 6 years ago? Like that. Yeah, I had a coach just before I started my first line of work outside of university, and I noticed that what my coach was doing at the time, I found it quite interesting, because it was a conversation with him that I thought to myself, I can do this. Like this is really interesting. I like the approach that he had, and he sort of inspired me at the time. And so yeah, so after the startup, I literally sat down with an A4 piece of paper, and it was a very sort of organic approach. I wrote down what I like, what I'm naturally drawn to, what do people, friends and family come to me for when it comes to advice or when it comes to motivation. So it's sort of like a spider diagram, like a brainstorming session. And I really just landed on, so it was kind of twofold. It was like the performance side of helping people reach their goals and aspirations, and then there was the relationship sides. So, you know, talking about love and the meaning of love and the dynamics in relationships and in your health within a relationship, sexual polarities between a man and a female, attributes a man and woman learn to sustain a healthy relationship, such as charisma and the art of flirting and maintaining healthy boundaries, all sorts of stuff that I just kept bringing out these topics more and more and more. So yeah, it's kind of twofold. That's what I do. That's what my coaching is really founded upon right now. So
then you did the Animas course. You became a kind of qualified coach.
Yes. So yeah, exactly. And now I'm working towards my ICF accreditations. Obviously, getting I think it's the ACC, is it? And then goes to the PCC, and then there's MCC. So working towards my ACC, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
So I guess because you've kind of had that experience of working in a startup, and the thought of starting up on your own as a self-contained company, isn't that concerning to you, I guess?
How so? How do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's because there's a lot of people who come into the coaching world do it. They come from a kind of corporate background, so they have to give up the salary and the security and the paid holidays.
In that sense,
yeah,
it's kind of like I kind of had to just bite the bullet. I mean, look, this is genuinely when I was going through that sort of reflecting period and reflecting phase of my life. The difficulty was, right, if I do this and I carry through with this, you're not going to have some sort of like income to sustain your life. So you really have to kind of go all in on this, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, it's my bread and butter. It's what I genuinely feel like I was born to do, to really have those conversations, those nuanced conversations with people. And it's my passion. I don't think I can really get tired of it right now, at least anyway. So
well, that's great. That's great. So you mentioned performance coaching. So if I was to come to you as a potential client and say that I was looking for performance coaching, what is it that you would interpret that I wanted, and then what is it that you would be offering as a service?
Sure. Well, I think really it comes down to helping my clients build the identity of what they want to be and where they want to be in the future. So, what you want to be in 3, 6, 9 months, 2 years from now, and really building that identity with that person so that when they go after it, it's inevitable. And for me, it's the identity shift that happens first before action can take place. So it's not the other way around. A lot of people think that it's the other way around. A lot of people believe that in order to become something or achieve something, that they have to first get the result, then they can start to believe in that change. But it doesn't work like that. So the identity comes first, and then the reality sort of catches up to it. So that's sort of my approach. It's like really understanding what the client wants and what would happen if they weren't to reach that. So sort of taking them on a sort of roller coaster journey when it comes to the performance side is, how badly do you want it? How attuned are you to that identity? How can we get you there? What are the obstacles that are stopping you from getting to where you want to be? And that's sort of the approach that I would take with someone.
And is that kind of predominantly within the kind of the world of work, the kind of corporate life of the client?
Yeah, good question. So at the moment, I would say the type of topics and the type of conversations that I'm having with clients, it's very sporadic. I haven't limited as a newbie in the coaching world. I've kept myself purposefully quite open to see what clients come to me, what clients I attract, what kind of conversations we want to have, and then sort of just going from there. And then obviously reflecting upon it afterwards and being like, okay, maybe perhaps I think I did well helping this client here. I trusted the coaching process here, but maybe perhaps I didn't perform as well with certain topics. So at the moment, it's really just anyone with any sort of goal. It could be, for example, like I want to buy my house in 6 to 1 year time. I want to renovate it. Okay, cool. Let's figure out a contingency plan for that. So that's sort of how it. It could be any topic really.
And do those two strands of kind of, I guess, the strands of the relationship coaching and the performance coaching, at times they intersect, whereas changing in your relationship is going to help you change your performance?
Yeah, no, it depends. Well, I mean, it's a very, very good point. It's luckily so far, the people who have come to me specifically for performance topics on the performance, leaning more on the performance side, hasn't really touched upon the relationship sides. However, after some some digging, you could find out the real problem could be their relationships. But that is really open to the client, if they want to speak about that. So I'd invite them in. So far, that really hasn't happened. But when it comes to the relationship side, it's quite clear that, I have a problem with my partner, or we're working through something. We want to get here together. So let's work through this. So it's kind of like, at the moment, they're two separate entities and they haven't really overlapped, but they could.
Yeah. And I guess the process is essentially the same, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Look, my how I look at myself is, I'm sort of like I don't like to say it out loud, but because it sounds ridiculous, but it's kind of like a linguistic guru. It's like my job is really just to be curious and just ask questions, and you can coach anyone on anything if you just ask them the right questions, the key open questions that you will, that's going to get them to think, that's going to get them to have those aha moments and create those links in their brains that they possibly could have had, they possibly couldn't have had. So
So it's a kind of facilitating role, isn't it?
Absolutely. You would know yourself, right? So
Well, so you've had you've had an interesting and diverse career already for someone who's quite young. So given everything that you've kind of learned, on this journey and on this path, if you weren't doing this now, what do you think you would like to be doing instead? And it's a tough question, but
no, it's a good question. And to be honest with you, it's something that I think about quite often, because it's always good to have a contingency plan. What if this doesn't work out? Or what if for some reason I start to lose the passion for coaching people? So my other passion is fitness and lifestyle, and I like to think that I take good care of my health. I pride myself on eating well, sleeping well, sustaining a good healthy lifestyle. So if I wasn't to do coaching, I would definitely be doing a form of coaching, but maybe in a different sort of subject, whether that be being a PT, or sort of a nutritionist, or something that helps people and I can be of service to people. And then if all goes wrong, then I'll probably go back to sales, because I don't know, I was good at sales before. So yeah, that's probably plan B, and then plan C would be sales.
It's quite interesting, that whole kind of nutrition and physical thing. So I've talked to a few people who have started on that road. They are physical trainers or nutritionists or whatever, and then they've come to the coaching world and they've kind of developed this holistic kind of coaching plan where you're helping people with their body and their mind and their eating. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could very well, it's a good tool to have in your arsenal to know about this stuff. And I certainly have, especially when it comes to performance topics. Health and fitness and physical appearance is very key, and it's one of the most common sort of topics spoken about. So I do definitely, and I can coach on that topic. But it can be quite difficult, because when people come in and say, what do I do, you're almost inclined to tell them exactly what they need to do, but really you need to get back into that coaching mindset. And it's about the curious side and not about telling them, because what works for me might not work for you.
Yes, it's difficult to give someone a schedule for a marathon training without telling them the schedule, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for talking to us today. That's really interesting, very useful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you, and appreciate what you and Rachel are both doing. And hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah. Okay. Speak to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Take care.